So, Dr. Freud, what do you have for me today?
I was surprised by this movie in many ways.
I gotta say, I was regretting my decision.
I think this would be something I'd show to my kids.
Oh, that's good to hear.
I think it's about a father's love for his child.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
And a complete stranger's love for that man's
They
child.
wore really ugly outfits. Puke yellow, prom night, pale blue, you know.
I don't even know where to start with this
Definitely
film.
not a movie I would consider watching unless you told me to. Hello, I'm Derek.
And I'm Peter.
And this is The Mog.
In this podcast, one of us suggests a beloved movie from our childhood for the other to watch. And then we talk about it. What made us laugh? What made us cry?
And whether or not it explains our Oedipus complexes.
What, Derek, what have we got today?
Now, hold on, Peter. Hold on just a second. We have a guest, remember?
Oh, yeah, him. Yeah.
Is this where I come in?
Our first guest of the Mog. Dear listeners, may I introduce Chris, my brother and source of childhood anxiety. Hi, Chris.
And pain.
Yeah, well, that was more on my side in terms of the violence that I rendered towards
that's
you.
what I meant.
Oh,
Yeah,
right. I was
let's
talking
face
about
it.
about me, not about you, because it doesn't really
Well,
matter too much.
I
how you
will
feel.
say thank you for having me on, and I can't wait to see how you segue in your next special guest. That was spectacularly rehearsed and masterfully executed. Well done, guys.
Welcome, Chris. It's so amazing to have you on. You're our biggest fan.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I think our source
And we love you.
our source of commentary and additional trivia.
Well, listening to you guys kills me because, I mean, let's face it, half the things you watch are the things that I've watched.
It's true.
So I'm killing myself going, say this, Peter, for God's sake, say this.
I think I generally do.
No, you're pretty good. You're pretty good.
So I'm really happy to have you on. And it's one of your films for our GOG, our guest Mog.
Well, I would say GOG. I'd say our films, of course. But this one has become a favorite of mine, not just from youth and young times, but also in later life. So I'll come to that a bit later, but I'll turn things back over to you.
So the film itself is Forbidden Planet from 1956.
Or as I'd like to call it, Science, the Art of Sex, or Freudian Slips.
I like to call it Getting Tanked with Robbie and the Chef.
I think I thought a while about this one, but I think I came up with 30 white men, 1 white woman, and monsters from the id. What could possibly go wrong?
That's amazing. So I'll start off with the synopsis.
Yeah, please do.
So when Adams and his crew are sent to investigate the silence from planet inhabited by scientists, he finds out all but 2 have died. Dr. Morbius and his daughter, Altera, have somehow survived a hideous monster which roams the planet. Unknown to Adams, Morbius has made a discovery and has no intention of sharing it, or his daughter, with anyone.
And can I just say that the planet is also called Altera, or Altair, so it's kind of like calling your daughter Earth.
Well, if she is the only thing there, then I suppose it's not too bad.
Well, so Mother Altera.
What did you say,
I can
Oedipus
see
complex?
Kanye and Kim Kardashian's next daughter is going to be Earth.
Well, it's better than Apple, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that's what you plan to seed into. Forget it.
So this was directed by Fred M. Wilcox, who also directed Lassie Comes Home and Courage of Lassie.
So he was like the Alfred Hitchcock and the Spielberg of the 1950s, I'm guessing.
God, I thought you were going to say it was the Alfred Hitchcock of Lassie.
Well, he was, I guess, because Lassie Comes Home is the classic.
But this one has drawn some comparisons to Shakespeare's The Tempest due to its isolated setting and just the plot. Did you guys pick up on that?
I have read that, but I must admit, watching it countless times throughout the years hasn't really brought that to my mind.
I have to say I've never seen or read The Tempest. I've read a synopsis, having heard that it was an inspiration for this film. But I couldn't tell you, to be perfectly honest. And one day that'll be my next step.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say, I actually have seen The Tempest, and I still can't make the connection.
So it's pretty obscure then.
Magical powers and all that sort of stuff, right?
You know, Shakespeare, greatest playwright.
Yeah, that's right. It's just like saying, we have this shit movie. How should we make it sound better? Well, let's just liken it to Shakespeare. Oh, thou woman.
He was a pioneer of sci-fi, right?
It inspired Roddenberry.
Yeah.
Pete's love of Star Trek, the slow motion, the motion picture was certainly inspired by Roddenberry.
As was their pajamas, I guess.
I guess Roddenberry had one. Well, yeah. Roddenberry had one extra thing. He had different races involved.
Yeah, that's true, and sexes.
But it was nominated for Best Visual Effects, but it lost to The Ten Commandments. It was a big year for film. 10 Commandments, Around the World in 80 Days, Rebel Without a Cause. So yeah, this was a bit dwarfed, being one of the only sci-fi films.
Actually, it doesn't feel like a movie from that era, because 10 Commandments, isn't that...
Heston.
Yeah, Heston. Guns. Sorry.
Gordon Street.
Yeah.
I remember a girl on Gordon Street.
But that was a long time ago. And that was this film a long time ago. But it also had one of the best comedic actors of all time, Leslie Nielsen.
It was his film debut.
Amazing.
Yeah, as a straight up actor too. You know, the leading man with the chiseled jaw and the brains of a...
And all I could think of was Naked Gun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, I have to admit that we watched this countless times when we were younger, and we also watched The Naked Gun, and I had no concept of who Leslie Nielsen was in this film until years later. So perhaps that helped, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, his hair was different.
It's like watching Angela Lansbury in films from the 60s, where she's supposed to be young and attractive, and all you can see is Murder, She Wrote.
I'm sorry,
that golden One Piece.
I'm the same. Every time you mention Angela Lansbury, all I can think is golden One Piece.
So I guess it leads us to the question, why this film? What was your first experience? Did you watch this film together?
I'll start with you, Pete. I think you should kick this off.
I think you should, but mine is fairly brief. Yes, watched it lots. You go, Chris.
That was very brief. Yeah, we watched it a lot. I think one thing that you've got to understand with Pete and I, when we were watching films, we really, for the most part, certainly I didn't have much concept of what was going on half the time. We watched the beginnings of films, no matter how dull and boring, so many times. And when you would actually come to the exciting stuff, that's the only stuff we could remember. So for us, we would always watch this film and then get really interested when the Krell would come in, the ancient alien civilization, or the monster attack towards the end.
Yeah, and I think certain concepts may have come through osmosis, but it certainly wasn't conscious of the vast degree of sexism that was going on in this film.
Oh no, we had no idea of that part.
No.
Goodness gracious. Yeah. We just sci-fi. Pete and I were sci-fi.
It did teach us how to try to pick up a lady, you know.
Absolutely nothing must show.
I noticed that's how you kiss, Peter.
Or wolf whistle.
So how old were you when you first watched this?
I don't think as old as you were when you watched Deliverance.
Yes.
What about you, Chris? What do you think, Chris?
I couldn't tell you when I first watched it. I do remember Laserdisc.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Oh, you had this on Laserdisc.
And 2001, A Space Odyssey.
Amazing.
God, we had no idea what the hell was going on in that film.
I still don't.
You do, I think. I remember going to a re-release of that of the movies once, and half the crowd walked out giving finger to the screen because they were so bored. But we were quite young when we watched this on video, certainly on video. But then Dad, I think, got it on Laserdisc.
Yeah.
So that sort of perked our interest again. And for me, I will skip ahead a little bit to the recent past. And I hate to turn this into a bit of a history lesson, but it's part of why I'm here, because this film is actually really, really interesting when you look at it in another light. I was studying university, and one of the best courses I've ever done was how does popular culture teach us about the Cold War?
Oh.
Now, I researched this film, and it's brilliant for teaching.
So what about films, Derek? What do you think of? No, I'm just kidding. Sorry, Chris. Keep going.
What about films? Nice one. It's revenge for me dropping in that slide, wasn't it, Pete? Coming down that slide after you
I still
crunch
remember
in the
that.
dark.
You almost broke my neck.
God, he always whinges
Almost
about that.
broke it.
Whatever doesn't kill you makes you
You
stronger.
brought it up. You brought it up. What are you talking about?
boys, no ice cream. if
Just
you don't
because,
behave.
just like you're just huge mass
That's
landing.
it. I'm
on
turning the car around. We're going home.
All right, sorry. You go.
So,
You go, Chris.
oh dear, I'm still picturing the squeal. Something like Deliverance, I think.
Well, I mean, we were in like a saucer, weren't we? In the dark. It was like a spaceship.
Robbie the robot was not there to help us, Pete.
No.
Okay,
Well, not me anyway.
so anyway, I researched this film, and interesting, it was made, as you say, Derek, the same time as the Ten Commandments. Now, if you watch the Ten Commandments and you watch, I think it's Cecil B. DeMille gets on and does a little intro spiel, which is essentially talking about communism and saying how communism's a big, big, horrible threat. Now, at the time this film was going on, there was this big, I'm sure at school everybody has learned about McCarthyism and the HUAC, the House Un-American Committee's look for communists in society. And this film came out right when this sort of stuff was happening. Now, perhaps another day we could talk about High Noon. That was a very interesting one for commentary on this. But this film, while it didn't necessarily, it wasn't out there overtly to scare you into communism, although certainly if you've ever seen this film and you talk about monsters from the subconscious, there was the threat of communism slipping inside every single one of us.
Oh, gosh.
What this film did was it talked about science. Now, people at the time were terrified of nuclear war and destruction, and people like scientists were originally thought of as brilliant, the shapers of nations' destiny.
Well, that's changed.
Well, look, and when the threat of nuclear proliferation came around, suddenly people turned around and thought, oh my God, these guys are dangerous. And you got someone like Robert Oppenheimer, the guy who helped create the atomic bomb. Some have stated that Morbius's character was an symbolic of Oppenheimer and his plight during this time.
Oh, wow.
But I love this film because it teaches us so much about the Cold War. And something you didn't talk about when you did War of the Worlds was a very similar thing. You've got that the aliens coming in and taking over through their superior force, superior firepower. And in the end, guess what saved us? It was God.
Oh, really?
God.
I thought it was science.
It was science, but it was also
Science
the
through God.
institutions. Institutions will save us, like the government.
But don't you know that science is God?
That's true.
Or is that the other way around?
Oh, God. My God, I'm even quoting God as we go along. But this film was very much talking about how institutions will save us. I mean, there's a part in this movie where Morbius says, I will not release any technology, and I will release it strictly at my own discretion, my own judgment.
Well, there's even a line later on. We're all part monsters, so we have laws and religion.
Ah, yes. That's right. There's the institutions coming in again. We're all, that's why we have religion and laws. So again, it needs to come under control of the government, this science, because we look after it better. This film is brilliant for teaching us about the Cold War, not only the scientific part, but also, as Pete brought up earlier, the gender and sex role stereotypes of the time. I mean, look, the future is filled with 25 to 30-year-old white men.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Chris. What does it teach us about race and sex? I don't understand.
Well, it teaches us that society is white, especially the future.
Derek, did you get that feeling from this film?
I was actually.
I mean, you're coloured.
Yeah, no. Well, it's of that era where you didn't really expect there to be many coloured people, because that's how Hollywood was established, and
But there weren't coloured people back then.
They didn't exist, right?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm a historian by nature. I don't study it, but my nature is historical. Sorry. I apologize profusely to the audience. And Chris, who is a large part of that audience, please proceed.
Well, you are right. I guess perhaps it's not teaching us that society is white, but certainly the most influential and perhaps the institutions are represented by white America. As we perhaps will talk about later, the girl only gets the guy by covering up instead of showing off any body.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of talking about society at the time here. And that's why one of the reasons I love this film, because it teaches us a lot about the time it was made in.
Mm.
So, yeah, that's my little historical spiel. I encourage you all to watch it and learn about the Cold War.
Mm. And just historical views of women. Just be prepared. I mean, let's put it this way. If you actually think that what is happening is right, maybe you were from that period or before.
Or of a mindset.
Because I just can't see how anyone watching this now would not think that it's sexist. There is literally a bit where a guy is holding up something that is essentially a camera, and he holds it up to the woman, the one woman in this film, and makes it go up and down, and there's a wolf whistle on the other end of it. So that's our inspiration from the pinnacle of mankind.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I guess we should jump into the plot itself.
Yeah.
With Act 1, no survival suits required.
Or as I like to call it,
Amazing.
Very much of the electronic score there, Pete. Very good.
When I spoke to you about this before we watched it, Derek, I said that you have to take note of the music. Did you actually pick up that the sound effects in the background were music?
Oh, yeah. Like, I had only watched a very small part when you hit me up about that. But then later on, yeah, you can't miss it. But I was really impressed with it. I actually thought it was quite brave to have a non-musical score and just purely electronic soundtrack.
Well, this was the first completely electronic soundtrack ever done. And it wasn't like a theremin. It was people working with electronics and building their own musical devices. It was before keyboards and all of that synthy stuff was coming out. It was purely a group that developed it themselves.
And it was just sounds, and they'd add effects to it like reverb and delay, and it just sounds incredible. I was pretty impressed.
Yeah, especially that Krell top #1 hit,
oh yeah,
which
that was
Morbius
awesome.
Plays. It's about as exciting as it gets.
I put that on for guests when they come over, just to get things
well,
livened up.
we put that on our 5.1 stereo sound channel, right, so we could hear it in both sides.
and your kids ran screaming from the room.
we find interesting, as you were saying, that this was one of the first electronic scores, Louis and B.B. Barron. Apparently, when this had been previewed with the score attached, the Musicians Guild or Musicians Union was a bit upset, and so that they refused to allow these guys to be listed as composers. So apparently, and I haven't actually checked this, but apparently they were listed as electronic tonalities as opposed to composers. So,
Wow.
The unions were strong even back in the 50s.
That's another institution.
Yeah, Derek, how would you feel being called a tonality?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that was a descriptor of a person. Cool.
So explain what happens. Let's give whoever is listening a chance to understand what is going on in this film.
Yeah. So first you see a UFO.
And it's a proper flying saucer.
It's quite a nice little ship, actually. And don't they introduce...
In the 21st century, man landed on the moon. And it turns out that man landed about 10 or 15 years after this film on the moon. So, and then they started searching deep space.
A lot of this it does feel like your first science fiction film where it's talking about the development of some type of federation, some type of group of explorers and governments outside of Earth. And I believe this is the first film that was ever played that didn't feature Earth at all.
Yeah, I think that's true, actually.
So they find this Earth-like planet, And that was a really cool feeling, I thought, where it's, they're discovering a planet that's habitable. And I don't know if you ever saw this series on TV, Earth 2 with Tim Curry.
No, didn't see that one.
Yeah, I had that real vibe about this. But I liked how when they land, you have this sort of Alien Covenant vibe where, they're just sort of exploring this planet with no suits on and they're just sniffing around.
Yeah. I mean, you think that like over 50 years later, and directors still manage to introduce people landing on an unknown planet without suits. We've come a long way.
It just reminded me of what your thoughts on that film was.
Yeah. But then again, they already know that Altair is fine.
Yeah, because there were people that were sent there, but they don't know what happened to them.
Yeah.
And it sort of felt like a video game where they were reading out the brief. And I know you used to play a lot of games together.
Yeah. Did we used to play a lot of games together, Chris?
I still remember once playing Command and Conquer with you, Pete. I was the only one who won. One game out of one. Sorry, did I bring that up on this? What does that got to do with this? We played a lot of games.
I think that has to do with the fact, Chris, that we only played one game if you won.
Pete, that was the only game that I ever won that I was even remotely good at that I beat you
at.
As
far as I remember, it was
and I think you gave up because you saw me nuke something. Speaking of technology, anyway, playing games, very, very similar to this movie, right?
Sorry, Derek, can you step out for a second? No. Keep going.
I hope our parents are listening to this because no one else is. My God.
So the other thing as well was it was J.J. Adams was commanding.
Oh, J.J.
And I was thinking, J.J. Adams. J.J. Abrams. Yeah, but anyway, that was...
Not enough lens flare.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
But even like Morbius, Doctor, they speak to him on the radio and then Adams just cuts him off halfway.
He's the embodiment of the strong American with... this film really is a homage to the ideal that intelligence doesn't really count for much. It's really about...
And the next line from him was, all hands must wear sidearms. You can bring guns.
Oh, what does he say, Morbius? He says a commander doesn't need brains, he just needs a big loud voice.
Yeah, I wrote that. So telling. But so anyway,
they land on the planet. The planet is beautiful and stunning, and then
and rocky. There's not really much planet.
True, and very rocky. And then a puff of dust.
Yep, comes around.
And then the Lost in Space robot's there.
Yeah,
Robbie.
Mr. Robbie, his first appearance.
And the chef just wants to know if it's a male or a female robot. Because he's been in deep space with dudes. He wants to do it with Robbie.
I didn't make that connection, but now that you mention it, I mean, it does really, lean towards what happens later in the film.
Where they get drunk. And he disappears for all night.
Okay, so yeah.
Apparently there was a cut scene later on in the film, or there's something they never filmed, which was supposed to be between the chef and Robbie the robot, where the chef is so drunk he says, "Have you got any female company?" And apparently Robbie, all he could do is get a monkey, but they didn't bother filming that. So.
Oh my God, that's great.
Oh my God.
Robbie's got some good gags. He's like, "Oxygen, I rarely use it myself, sir. It promotes rust."
Yeah.
But they get whizzed off to the base, and that looked very cool. Morbius's base with the little lake and purple trees.
Yeah,
and a fish statue.
Yeah, I saw a fish statue. It just made me think. It looked like a Hollywood apartment in in the way that they represented Hollywood apartments in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
But
apparently, some of those sets were left over from Wizard of Oz.
Nice.
But he was a philologist, which I haven't heard of, an expert in words, languages, and meanings.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And all I could think was Morbius, the young Colonel Sanders, because he actually had
the little collar thing, the pointy collar.
Oh yeah,
yeah. You couldn't see it too much, but because he was wearing it in a black outfit, so it was kind of lost.
And he was totally into the home automation, man. I was in heaven.
I was thinking Google Home.
Yeah. Closes the windows, the steel shutters with a wave of his hand. I got to install some of that.
A household disintegrator beam. Everybody needs one of those.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Just imagine what happens if you've had too much to drink and you stick your hand in that.
Oh gosh, it's right near his kitchen too. I did get that Dr. Jekyll vibe pretty much straight away.
Yeah, but watching this again, you're right. I also got that vibe as well. But watching it through, he actually doesn't do anything bad.
Yeah, it's just his presence.
He's quite a good guy. I think. You know, perhaps he's like the fallen hero or something.
Yeah, like he's not like even when it's revealed who the bad guy is,
which we will come to later.
It's not something that he's been hiding. It's something he wasn't really aware of. It didn't click. But so let's keep going. Introduce that his wife has died and everyone's died, and then a young woman appears on the scene. And all the guys just go up in flames.
How did you guys feel about that? As this is your childhood film.
Never even noticed it, to be honest.
No, didn't notice it at all.
We were too innocent to know what's going on.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. I think Pete and I would just fast forward any kissing that would probably happen.
Oh,
because we didn't get that stuff. We just wanted the science fiction-y bits.
Yeah, absolutely. Go into a bit more of the explanation of the way the planet works.
Yeah, exactly.
I could do with that for like an hour.
Yeah, really?
You know, just rewind and play it through again.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so the way that she's introduced, Derek, how did you take this? I just want to know from someone who's just seen this for the first time.
Yeah, I was a little bit taken aback. It was a little bit overt. It was just like in your face sexism. I don't know. I sort of was.
But it was like right in front of the dad as well.
Yeah.
Like the Morbius, the dad is just watching as all of these guys are just openly staring at her, making comments to him as well as to each other.
Yes.
And there was just some really awful lines like, "Oh, I think what you said must have been clever. I just don't understand it." It's like, oh man, how would this ever fly nowadays?
Don't look at me. I'm just a girl.
Oh, and it's
It would never
like
fly
just
now.
the way, like seriously, it's you know, they're saying we've got 30 men who haven't seen a woman in ages. You better look after her. It's sort of like someone else's responsibility if she gets raped. It's just, oh my God, it's terrible. It is just so openly terrible. And they're saying the view looks quite like heaven.
Yes.
As they're openly staring at her.
She's got a very bizarre ballet walk too, I might add.
I think that was just like a catwalk for the men.
Ah, I see. Prancing.
Morbius was waiting for them to arrive so he could display her.
Well, she was barefoot, so I guess she was trying to. Yeah, she was just given what she was got. I was pretty impressed with her acting. It was quite good. She sort of maintained a strong female presence despite the awful script that she was given.
It was almost like she was suffering through it rather than giving into it. Do you know what I mean? Like saying women are dumb and all of that type of stuff. She wasn't like that. She might have been naive, which is the way that they portrayed her. But I think as an actress, given the role that she had, I think she did a good job.
Yeah. And like when the first guy kisses her, she doesn't respond to it, and you know,
yeah,
she's got her own sense of what's going on.
So I think that leads into the next act, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, Act 2, splashing out with Robbie and Chef. Getting legless.
I called it the art of the deal.
Oh yeah.
No, I think I called it the rain in Spain stays mainly in the plain, but not her bloody miniskirt.
Well, Chris, why don't you sort of introduce this act to us?
Well, okay, so we've met Robbie, we've met Morbius and his daughter, and we see that there's people on the planet and they're all okay. And then the captain says, look, we don't know what to do. Our orders were to see if you're alive and probably take you back with us. So we've got to radio back to base for orders. And just as they're building the radio, some mysterious invisible entity comes in and breaks their klystron monitor, which apparently is bronze coil. That is a klystron monitor, is bronze coil.
Well, I mean...
and then they want to know why it happened, so they go back to Morbius, and Morbius comes to Pete's favorite bit.
Well, the kiss. No, wait, you're talking about
Goose.
The other stuff that's actually interesting. I thought you were joking. I always see this act as starting with the fact that they're having a discussion around kissing. when I was watching it, because it goes from there to the mysterious thing breaking in. And I loved, how they took the impressions in the ground?
Yeah, amazing.
Was that at this point, or was that after the guy was killed?
Oh, I think that was the next death. That was Quinn's death, I think.
Yeah.
The impressions.
We'll come to that.
Okay. Oh, well, we'll go back to that. Yeah. So they destroy the Klystron and talk to Morbius, and he introduced them to the idea and the world of the Krell, which is all subterranean now because of just how long it's been around for. Everything on the surface has just fallen into dust. Who are the Krell, Chris?
The Krell is an ancient civilization who had ventured themselves out into the galaxy, apparently bringing back some animal specimens, which I found interesting considering there's only 2 or 3 in the film. And if they're going to have been to Earth millions of years before, how are there only 2 left? 1 tiger and 1 deer. Surely there's, Noah's Ark or something like that. I don't know. But maybe they're immortal. But anyway, this ancient civilization has, as you say, perished. And Morbius doesn't know why. He just knows that they disintegrated in a single night. They had become scientifically and morally so superior that they had come to the point where, as Morbius puts it, were just about to move beyond instrumentality, which is essentially creation by thought, or moving things by thinking about it. No need to move or do anything.
So imagine it like a Google Mini with a full wireless setup at home, and you have to just think about it to turn the lights on.
Or to actually make it in the first place, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, that's right. You imagine a Google Mini.
Derek, what did you think?
Are they paying us? They should be paying us for this.
Google.
I love the set design of the arches, and you can see a real Star Wars influence with all of that sliding doors and the sets and the massive scope of it.
Yeah,
it was amazing.
No, it was. I loved that underground subterranean machine, because it really is just this. It looks like a city underground.
Well, it's essentially its entire purpose is to act as an energy supply.
Yeah,
all of this stuff. So, yeah, that's it. Especially if you think of the 1950s, this would have been a pretty mind-blowing experience for people.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that they talk about is somewhat couched in science. More so than you would have in a lot of other science fiction films post that period. And there is, I guess, for a lot of people who might not find it interesting, there's a lot of discussion around the actual nature of the Krell, the nature of the planet, the way that things work there, what happened to the people when they discovered it, what happened to Morbius. And I was fascinated by that stuff. And he could just go on and on. And I was just like, well, come on, explore a little further, a little bit more, give me more info. But it's all just walking around explaining and showing stuff. But for some reason, I just found it fascinating.
What about you, Derek?
Yeah, and then they have a little IQ pissing contest. Did you see that?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
But that's where they introduced the brain boost, which he got.
And your favorite character, who incidentally was one of the worst sidekick characters in any James Bond film there has ever been and ever will be. The wacky Midwestern American sheriff. We're talking about your cook, Derek.
Oh, the cook. Oh. Okay, but he was introduced before. Yeah, I love the cook with the booze. He goes, I think that was all just inserted because they thought it would never fly without a bit of comedy. So they just put these lines in for the chef, asking him to manufacture gallons of whiskey.
And he also serves the purpose of making sure that Robbie the robot was not the one who caused the damage too. So it was also cunningly written as an alibi. Yes.
Yeah. True.
And those perimeter fences were really cool. I really liked all that stuff.
Yeah, that was cool.
Epic special
effects. Which I think it leads you therefore once they figured out that this Krell existed in this unbelievable power, which was essentially only at Morbius's fingertips because he was the only one who could translate any of the Krell writing as a philologist. They leads back to the romantic angle, does it not?
Yeah, so pretty much this act is all about introducing the Krell and the machine, and the character development of one woman and 30 men. So it's just, there's one guy who is first introduced and he's like doing his best to crack on to Altera. And of course the dad's not having anything to do with it. He's fine with all of that. It's just the captain who's trying to get her from being taken advantage of. And in the process, they're trying to woo her through their various methods.
And she ends up picking the guy who treats her like crap, right?
I mean, that
isn't that how it usually works?
Obviously always trumps it. Yeah, all the way through to the 80s, I think. No, the 90s, or is it still? Well, there's still good examples of where it's a great method. Presidents and that's
yes. One day, people will look on this and realize that Donald Trump was president, and they'll go, "Oh my God! Now we know what you're talking about."
Yeah, Leslie Nielsen became Trump.
Now, there would have been a good caricature, right? Naked Trump.
That was his first inspiration. He sat up and gun. While we were looking at the scientific explanation, he was going, "Oh, this is the way to do it. This is the way to work on the chicks. I know this intellectual sciencey fancy stuff is just bullshit. But I should take it down a notch because his voice probably would have been a lot lighter. Oh, this is bullshit." Anyway, moving on. That gets rid of the rest of our audience.
Yes, back to reality.
But all the while, Robbie was giving his little comedic lines as well. He was like, "Sorry, miss, I was giving myself an oil job." Oh, Robbie. I love you, Robbie. And it's like, "Oh, we're all out of star sapphires. Well, diamonds do."
Yeah.
They take a week to crystallize, for God's sake. What are you talking about?
It's interesting how a robot managed to make it into other movies. Not only was he a character in the film, but the character became an actor that featured in other films that had nothing to do with this one.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah, well, he was in... What other movies was he in? Like Twilight Zone, of course. What was it? You mentioned it before. Lost in Space.
There was actually like an unofficial sequel to this. I cannot remember the name.
Return to the Forbidden Planet.
The Invisible Boy. I think it was called The Invisible Boy.
Yeah, that's it. The Invisible Boy. I didn't realize that was a sequel.
I've got the Blu-ray of this film at home, and that's on there. And I was reading a couple of people online, and they said, "Do not ever watch it. You will have wasted an hour and something of your life, and it will not have been worth it, even in the slightest."
All right. So it was a true Alexander the Great, except half the length.
Oh, see, I'm watching that from a historical perspective, and that never bothers me. That
really,
film.
Colin Firth with dyed hair and eyebrows.
It probably ruins history anyway. Considering he's not sleeping with a guy anyway, which is what in reality he was doing. That's not very historical.
Well, no, it just showed maybe one half of what he was doing. But,
what about the other half? It doesn't matter. It's only history. Anyway, so we've got Captain Adams. He tells off Altera for dressing scantily and for turning on the other guys. And so, yes, she asks for a full body suit with beautiful diamonds and everything because she thinks that's the way to his heart. So, yeah, playing hard to get Captain Adams works every time.
Good old JJ. What was your takeaway from this, Derek? Did you get some good tips?
Yeah, I wasn't really on board with any of all that stuff.
I'll tell you what, Derek, if you do any of those things, can you film it, please? Because that'll go viral.
Oh, my God.
But at some point, Quinn died, and I was quite sad about that.
Yeah, so Quinn was the engineer, so he was the Scotty of the
one
film.
Rebuilding the Klystron monitor that had been sabotaged.
Actually, it's interesting. I did notice a few minor parallels with Star Trek, and that is that the Captain Kirk of Leslie Nielsen, the Doctor was his sidekick. Bones was the
Doc Ostro,
the Doctor next to him, and it had an engineer as well, and he was friendly enough. So yeah, it was interesting. It did seem like a long Star Trek episode.
Well, Quinn died, and
he doesn't just die; he gets splayed all over the communications room. Apparently.
It's quite awful. Yeah.
Of course, it's the 50s, so we would never have seen it. But the mere idea, just imagine.
And that's where you see your footprints, Peter.
Yeah. And those are cool.
And they actually filled up those prints, and you see what it is. It's a massive craw.
Craw.
Craw? A claw from the krell. Yeah, it's cool. It's this massive footprint, and you don't know what it is, and it's invisible. And I think that the reason I liked it was because it was tapping into the unknown. You don't see the monitor, and you never really do get to see the monitor. Did I say monitor? Monster. You never do get to see the monster fully. You see its outline or its footprints, but never quite the monster itself.
Did you have memories of the monster, Chris?
You know what? I seem to recall when we first watched it that either the monster was not there drawn the way that it was, that I see it now, or that I just never remember what it looked like. It's bizarre.
I actually know what you're talking about, Chris. The video that we had cut out a lot of the stuff, the scenes where the monster...
What the hell was going on in Australia back in the 1980s?
I don't know. Maybe they were only interested in nudity.
God, I mean, the reason I did that Spain comment for 4 was because apparently this was the first miniskirt worn in a Hollywood movie, and Spain banned the film until 1967 because she wore a miniskirt.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, come on. 1980s Australia, you can't show animated monsters?
Well, people were getting killed, Chris.
That's true. That's true. A couple of guys did get picked up.
Jerry got killed as well.
Yeah.
And just before that, he's like to the captain, he's like, she picked the right man. And you're going like, Jerry.
So Jerry was the guy who first had a chance
to crack onto Altera, yes.
But damn it, Jerry, why'd you run in like that? Oh, I was also very sad.
What I love from that scene is the way they shoot the guns.
Those guns were so cool, but there was like no recoil. And I mean, it's
no kickback
it's
at all.
Probably realistic, but it looks really funny when there's no recoil.
The intensity on the faces, they hold their guns still.
And I love it how he runs up closer. You wonder, how is that making any impact now that he's closer?
Wow, he was sacrificing himself.
For what? I'm sorry. I'm just glad he's dead.
I will say that in this part, the build up to the attack is really cool, especially the use of the electronic sound and music.
Yeah.
The way they build it up is really spooky, and they've got the guy who's in the radio room. He can see it on his radar, but nobody can see it until it hits
and it's
the
getting
fence.
closer and closer.
It's pretty cool build up. They did that really well.
Like there was actually like a handheld walking camera shot up towards one of those big guns, and that feels really contemporary. You would see that stuff done nowadays, but this was the 50s, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, the sets were pretty good for the time. I thought it was nicely done all around.
We're well into the third act now, which I call The Wizard of Id.
Yes.
Have you seen that cartoon?
No. I called it Booze and Brain Boosts.
Oh, yeah, the brain boost.
Yeah, I think mine was something about recoil, not in the future.
I played too many games is my problem. It's like, it makes it too easy. It's aimbotters.
So, yeah, that's true. So Act 3 is Robbie gives the cook his alcohol, which consists of 800 pints.
60 gallons
60
or something.
gallons.
The captain, more or less, has started to get the girl.
Yep.
And the big attack happens. So then they decide to bug out, and Morbius, what's his name? Adams and Doc Ostro head back to Morbius to do what?
Well, they're going to get the brain boost so that they can understand what's going on, because they don't trust the doctor anymore. And I should say that I think it's not very representative of Leslie Nielsen's efforts, Chris, by saying that they're starting to have a relationship. She's pretty much in love with him at this point.
Yeah.
She's ready to run away with him.
But he was also coming back to save her as well. He said, like, to the crew, take off if I don't come back.
Yes, but that's the fact that she has, what does she say, attached herself to him, body and soul, forever. Because one of the reasons why Morbius and his wife were never killed by this magic monster was that they wanted to stay on the planet. And she obviously does too up to this point. And now that they realize that she wants to leave, that means she's now in danger too.
Yeah. So he goes off to talk to her about going away. And while they're talking, the doctor runs in on his own to get the brain boost.
That's where he has his Yoda moment. Monsters from the id.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens is he's talking with Altera and they're making plans for their future. And she almost gets attacked by a tiger, which was a friend up until that point, and he has to kill it to save her. And they go back and Robbie is taking out the doctor's body, who is dying.
His last legs, or lack thereof.
Yep.
And he says, what does he say, Derek? What's the key, the reveal?
Oh, it was the monsters from the id.
They didn't know they actually completed their machine on no instrumentality, the pinnacle of civilization.
But they forgot one thing. The monsters from the subconscious.
Monsters from the id. Because he actually doesn't know what the id is. He does have to ask the doctor what it is. He goes, what's the id, doctor? What's the id? He goes, oh, it's a...
Obsolete. I
Yeah.
think he calls it an obsolete term.
Well, I wanted to ask you, Peter, like, did you remember the psychology stuff from here as well? Was that an influence for you?
I wouldn't say that this was, because I didn't know what they were talking about when they were talking about the id. So I never really did pick up what they meant for quite a long time. Though you do get the idea that it's coming from the doctor's mind. You just, when you're young, you don't quite pick up whether it's something he's really wants or can't control. But it essentially refers to that we all have that primal self underneath us, regardless of how advanced or how moral we are or how considerate and compassionate and conscious. We all have that primal self, that monster that sits in our subconscious. And that even though the Krell had come to such a level of advancement and transcended to such a high extent, they still had part of their mind that was still the id. Even if it was really far into the subconscious, it still existed. And once lack of instrumentality was reached, those monsters were given free rein to do whatever they wanted.
And hence the Krell were wiped out in a single night.
Yep.
Everybody in the whole Krell developed their own monster, which killed everybody else.
Yeah. There may have been one Krell left, but I'm guessing that he got bored.
Well, millions of years, and you're not allowed to think.
Yeah.
What is that going to do? Oh my God.
What was your take on all this, Chris? You're a little bit older than Peter.
By a year. No, I think what I really like is, okay, that this also, there was a fantastic documentary by a guy called, oh my God, I remember his name every other day of the week. Come back to it. He's a British guy, and he made this documentary called The Century of the Self. And it started off with Freud and how Freud's ideas became psychoanalysis. And psychoanalysis became really big through the 30s and 40s and 50s. So there's clearly an idea that sort of this was on people's minds. And as I say, we won't just talk about communism, the threat that communism lurks within all of us. But I really think this is kind of a nice, funky, deep and meaningful way of doing things. I think for a 50s film, it's actually a pretty brilliant concept.
Yeah, well, it goes into science and psychology,
Exactly.
really.
I think this is a fantastic concept. And
Adam Curtis was the guy.
that's him, Adam Curtis.
Yeah, it was a 2002 British television documentary.
Well done. Google, very quick, guys. And masking the sound of your keyboard too, I might add.
That wasn't Google. That was my memory.
He's got some fantastic, there's some ads for Adam Curtis if you're listening, dude. He makes fantastic documentaries, but this was really cool.
Yeah.
And-
J.J. Adams, Curtis.
Nice one. So, yeah, I thought this was a fantastic idea. And eventually we discovered that this monster is powered by the seemingly endless machinery inside the planet. So no matter how far they lock themselves behind sheet after sheet of impenetrable steel and metal and iron, this monster just draws on more and more power.
To get through.
I don't know how the hell Morbius almost dies. That is one thing that's always confused me. Why does he suddenly collapse, and does the monster get to him or what? I don't know.
I think what happened was he had the worst ice cream headache of all time. Because that's what it looks like.
I thought his acting was really good, though, in general.
Ice cream from the subconscious. subconscious.
It was, but it did look like someone having the worst ice cream headache of all
Well,
time.
if he's got the entire energy power of a planet behind him, imagine what that ice cream headache could do.
Yeah, well, it was infinite, really.
Monsters from the subconscious.
I really like the lines they were using. It was very sciencey, renewing its molecular structure from 1 microsecond to the next.
Yeah,
that was really
yeah.
cool. I thought
Yeah, that's true.
I was impressed with that.
It was interesting how the captain was so dumb up until that point, and as soon as he realized what the id meant, the subconscious, suddenly he was just the smartest guy in the room. Like the doctor's like, "What? I don't understand. What? No, everything's fine. I won't hear you.
Yes. I accept it. I accept you. I reject you. I reject
Oh,
you.
I'm going away with you, darling. I will die for you. Your brain is so big, darling.
You could ought to be around any day.
And your voice is so loud. I'll do whatever you like. You're right. I'm wrong." But yeah, so Morbius has an inner, I guess, battle. And as a result of that, he has a brain meltdown.
Becomes mortally wounded, I guess you would say.
So he's dying and he... Well, I'll let someone else tell this one because I just find it hilarious.
Derek, you should finish this off, being the neutral observer, I think.
Well, he passes away. Actually, I can't really remember what happens after that. Sorry.
It was you were too distraught. He basically he refers to a piece of machinery that's quite handy.
Self-destruct, I think it was.
Oh, the self-destruct. That's right. I was reminded of... I was actually thinking about Spaceballs when this went on. It was like, thank you for using the self-destruct button. Have a good day.
It's literally like, just push that over there.
It blows up the entire
It's interesting
planet.
that he's taken decades to figure out about the Krell technology, but he knows where the self-destruct button
Well,
is.
it's so
That's,
obvious. I mean, it's the other thing as well is like he's saying, "Oh, this room would have been used for Krell children to learn and grow, and they may or may not have been playing with the self-destruct button right around the corner."
It's amazing.
Yeah.
It was very convenient, but it also wrapped things up quickly
Yeah.
because pretty much all the pieces are done by
They
then.
jump onto the spaceship. They fly away to a distance far enough with Robbie at the helm and the captain with the girl. And he explains to her that one day her father's name will be up there in lights, but it reminds us that we are not God.
No, definitely not.
Religion and law.
Final ode to institutions.
Institutions, yeah.
Yeah, they did have a debate earlier on about who it is that should be dictating what to be done with this infinite technology.
And it was Morbius, right?
Yeah, I agree with Morbius. I reckon, if you want Leslie Nielsen to come along and tell you how to, they should be the ones making the shots.
Well, think back to that context. People were scared of those scientists, and the government was a safe hand for you. It would look after you, right? So that's a moral dilemma.
Isn't that more communist?
Well, no. Using a command economy to build your stuff is one thing, but making sure that the government, which is protecting you, has a better control of these scientific discoveries than a single man, I guess. I don't know what you mean, but
Yeah, because that's always worked.
yeah, well, I mean, look at Trump. Oh, Donald, there goes Donald. That was our last. That really was our last.
I think he's going to be. He's just like he's the figure for our modern age. He just represents so much about where we're going and where we've been, all in the one place. But I just all I could think was that now that they're all aboard, she's stuck there with 30 white men.
Oh, no.
She's the captain's girls, though. You don't mess with the captain.
And Robbie can always make some female monkeys for them.
That's true.
So how would you rate this on your nostalgia meter, Chris?
Personally, I love this film. You know what? I have watched it enough to look past now the blatant sexism of the film, which is certainly strong. But I just love the premise. I love the fact that this is the 50s. And yet, I mean, it looks dated in many ways, but at the same time, it still holds up. Even though it's animated, it's not computer graphics. And yes, there's no damn recoil on those guns. It still looks pretty cool. And anyone watching it,
does.
I mean, it's a blast from the past, and I just love the fact that there's a deep and meaningful side to it too. It's not just sci-fi for sci-fi's sake.
Yeah.
So, for that sense, I love it. And remembering the first time I watched it years later and saw the monster, thanks to that stupid cut tape that Pete was talking about, that was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Wow.
What about you, Pete?
Oh, I'd give her a 10. Oh, wait, sorry. The film... I'd give it a 10. The film was good. Sorry. Another bad joke about sexism. Derek.
Oh, I thought it was really enjoyable. It's very dark, but it's rich in sci-fi, and the music absolutely adds to it, I think. It's a very unique experience. The great acting and the story is engaging. The setting was really great. I would recommend this as a pioneer of sci-fi.
It was acknowledged as a key piece of historical media.
Yeah. So thanks so much for recommending this one.
And thanks to my brother for being the guest on this, because it's
Yes, and apologies to everybody for letting us relive our fraternal frustrations.
Shut up, Chris. I mean, no, it's fine. Say what you want. Just
Yes.
we'll have that game again, and we'll sort it out. We'll show who's actually good at playing computer games and who.
This time you won't quit when the nuke appears on your screen, right? Yeah.
Well, I was frustrated. We agreed that Nod was overpowered with nuclear weapons. So.
Oh no, it was because I did what I always did. I just gave up and I just used the stuff I wasn't allowed to use.
You broke the truce.
That was the way I did. And Pete would always win. So there you go, listener, half listener.
If you want to beat Pete, fight dirty.
Pete was the better gamer. Always
That's
was.
right. That's absolutely right, and that's where we'll end this conversation. And we're never going to talk again.
One day you'll have me back here, and this will have got this.
I'm
out of our
sorry.
system.
Who are you?
So that's right. I'm Derek's brother. Hi, Derek.
I've heard you're a nice guy.
Thanks again, Chris. Do you have anything else?
What's your next film, guys? What's your next film?
Oh, I believe it is Predator 1987. This is one of Peter's.
My God, did I pick this one as well? Dear, oh dear. I will listen with bated breath and tell you all sorts of tidbits from that.
We'll see if that is the next one. Things are a bit fluctuating at the moment because we may or may not have another guest, but we have to see how that one goes.
Very exciting. Well, hopefully you won't fight, Derek. I assume this is one of your guests, so get that out of the way before the podcast begins.
All right. Well, thanks very much, guys, and insert catchphrase here.
Thank you.
Bye.
Have you stopped?
I've got to press this stop button.
I'm going to stop now.